Welcome, everyone. I am thrilled to have you here today. Over the next few modules, we are going to explore one of the most transformative technology shifts of our generation, generative AI. We won't just be talking about the technology itself, but rather how to strategically implement it to drive measurable, profound business value. Let's get started. Welcome, everyone. Today, we are diving into a transformative topic, identifying the true business value of generative AI. To harness its power, we first must understand exactly what it is and how it differs from the technologies of the past. Traditional AI was analytical. It looked at historical data to recognize patterns, make classifications, or predict numerical outcomes like forecasting sales or flagging fraudulent transactions. Generative AI, however, represents a monumental shift. It doesn't just analyze, it creates. Built on large language models, or LLMs, generative AI understands the deep semantic relationships in human language and uses that understanding to generate entirely new content, be it text, code, images, or even audio. Imagine having a digital collaborator that can instantly draft a marketing brief, summarize a 50-page regulatory report, or write complex Python code. For business leaders, this shifts the focus from building complex machine learning pipelines to leveraging pre-trained, internet-scale models to unlock immediate productivity. The question is no longer, how do we build the algorithm, but how do we apply this creative engine to solve our most pressing business bottlenecks? Let's explore how we make that transition. Let's take a look at the diagram on your screen. It beautifully illustrates the paradigm shift from traditional AI to generative AI. On the left, you see the traditional AI node branching out into predictive and analytical tasks. Think of this as your forecasting models and classification systems. They take data in and output a probability or a label. Now, follow the lower branch to generative AI. Here, the capabilities change entirely. We move into content creation and reasoning. The core engine driving this is the large language model, which processes massive amounts of unstructured data to generate novel outputs. As you follow the flow, you'll see how this branches into practical business outputs like drafting emails and writing code. This visual makes it clear. We are moving from a world where AI simply reads and scores data to a world where AI actively participates in the creative and operational processes of your business. Understanding this fundamental architecture is the first step in identifying where this technology can drive the most value in your own organization. Now that we know what generative AI is, why does it actually matter to your bottom line? The value proposition of generative AI is rooted in speed, scale, and unprecedented productivity. Research shows that generative AI could automate nearly 60% of tasks that require applied expertise, work that was previously considered too complex or nuanced to be automated. But AI is not magic. It requires a deeply strategic foundation. As you can see in our framework, successful AI adoption relies on 5 essential drivers. First, business strategy, aligning AI directly to your core KPIs. Second, technology and data strategy, ensuring your data is clean, secure, and accessible. Third, AI strategy and experience, running disciplined, highly focused pilots. Fourth, organization and culture, empowering your people to actively embrace new tools. And fifth, AI governance, managing risk and compliance responsibly. Organizations that mature across these 5 pillars are seeing incredible returns, with some realizing $3.70 for every single dollar invested. AI is no longer just an IT initiative. It is a board-level imperative that reshapes how we engage customers, empower employees, and ultimately bend the curve on innovation. This diagram maps out the 5 foundational drivers of AI readiness and how they converge to create tangible business value. At the top, feeding into the center, we have 5 distinct pillars. Let's walk through them. On the far left, business strategy ensures we are solving the right problems. Next, tech and data strategy provides the secure, scalable infrastructure required to run these models. In the center, AI strategy focuses on starting small with pilots and scaling what works. Moving right, organization and culture highlights the human element, upskilling your workforce to actually use these tools effectively. Finally, AI governance wraps the entire process in safety and compliance. You'll notice how all these individual nodes flow directly into business value, which then cascades down into specific, measurable outcomes, efficiency and innovation, and high ROI. If you remove any one of these pillars, the flow is disrupted and the value diminishes. This visual serves as your blueprint to scale AI successfully, you must orchestrate all 5 of these drivers simultaneously. It's a holistic ecosystem, not just a software deployment. So, where do we actually deploy this technology for maximum impact? The secret to early success is to avoid pilot sprawl testing AI randomly across the business and instead focus directly on workflows where complexity and repetition severely slow your business down. We categorize high-impact opportunities into 3 main areas: document-heavy, data-heavy, and meeting-heavy processes. Think about your document-heavy tasks, like drafting policy updates, writing complex proposals, or reviewing lengthy contracts. Generative AI can generate first drafts and extract key clauses in seconds. Next, consider data-heavy processes like financial forecasting or operational performance analysis. AI can synthesize thousands of rows of structured and unstructured data into a readable summary instantly. Finally, we have meeting-heavy processes. How much organizational time is lost simply taking notes or tracking action items? Intelligent tools can automatically summarize discussions and assign tasks, ensuring nothing falls through the cracks. The best approach is to identify 1 or 2 processes with clear pain points, preferably ones that directly impact revenue or customer experience. Measure the baseline, implement the AI solution, and rigorously track the ROI before scaling it across the entire enterprise. Direct your attention to the flowchart on the screen, which breaks down the practical identification of high-impact workflows. We start at the top with the core directive: identify pain points. From there, the organizational flow splits into 3 primary categories of operational friction. The first branch leads to document-heavy tasks, representing your contracts and proposals. The second branch targets data-heavy tasks, like financial forecasting. The third branch highlights meeting-heavy tasks, pointing to strategy sessions and daily reviews. Notice how all 3 of these disparate branches converge seamlessly into the generative AI engine. This node represents the application of models like Microsoft Copilot or custom Azure AI solutions, acting as a centralized processor to do the heavy lifting. Finally, follow the arrows down to the bottom nodes, which display the measurable business outcomes, accelerated cycle times, and strategic focus. This diagram is a practical operational lens for your business. Instead of asking a vague question like, "What can AI do?" use this map to ask, which of our heaviest workflows can we route through this AI engine today to achieve these specific, high-value outcomes? Once you have identified a high-value use case, the next major strategic decision is how to implement it. Do you build a custom solution from scratch, or do you buy something off the shelf? We approach this through a highly effective buy, extend, or build framework. If your goal is immediate productivity for common, everyday tasks like drafting emails, creating presentations, or summarizing meetings, the answer is firmly buy. Using solutions like Microsoft 365 Copilot offers incredibly fast deployment and predictable subscription costs. But what if you need the AI to interact with your specific CRM or internal HR systems? That is when you extend. Using low-code tools like Copilot Studio, you can securely connect out-of-the-box AI to your proprietary data sources without heavy software development. Finally, if you are operating in a highly regulated industry, dealing with unique intellectual property, or needing strict, granular control over the underlying language models you build. Using platforms like Azure AI Foundry, your developers can create fully custom generative AI applications. While building offers ultimate control and competitive differentiation, it requires more technical expertise. The key is to start with buy 4 quick wins and build only where you truly differentiate. Let's walk through this decision tree, which perfectly visualizes the buy, extend, build strategy. At the very top, we begin with a specific business need. The first decision diamond asks a critical question: is this a standard task? If the answer is yes, the path leads directly left to the buy node, represented by Microsoft 365 Copilot, yielding immediate ROI with minimal setup. If the task is not standard, we move down the workflow to the next diamond. Does it need integration with existing enterprise systems? If yes, we follow the path to extend, utilizing Copilot Studio to connect the AI securely to your CRM or internal databases. If your need goes well beyond simple integration, perhaps requiring custom foundation models, highly specific compliance controls, or the protection of unique intellectual property, we move to the rightmost path, build. This leads us to the Azure AI Foundry node, giving your engineering teams maximum control and customization. By following this visual logic, you can systematically map your entire portfolio of AI use cases, ensuring you aren't spending valuable engineering resources building custom solutions for problems that an off-the-shelf copilot can solve on day one. It is all about optimizing your investment and accelerating time to value. A critical concern for business leaders adopting AI is reliability. Generative AI models are incredibly articulate, but if they lack the specific context of your business, they can confidently generate incorrect information, a phenomenon known in the industry as hallucination or fabrication. To solve this and build trust, we use two critical techniques: grounding and retrieval augmented generation, commonly known as RAG. Grounding means restricting the AI's responses exclusively to authoritative, verified data sources rather than relying solely on its broad, pre-trained internet knowledge. RAG is the specific system architecture we use to achieve this grounding. When a user asks a question, the system first retrieves the most relevant documents from your secure enterprise data estate, like your SharePoint files, internal databases, or policy manuals. It then feeds that specific, highly relevant data, alongside the user's prompt, directly into the language model. The model is strictly instructed to generate its answer based only on those retrieved documents. This ensures that the AI's output is not just grammatically plausible, but factually accurate, highly relevant, and secure. For regulated industries like finance, legal, or healthcare, RAG is absolutely non-negotiable. It seamlessly bridges the gap between the creative reasoning power of an LLM and the strict factual requirements of your enterprise. This sequence diagram breaks down the internal mechanics of retrieval augmented generation, or RAG, into a simple, step-by-step flow. On the far left, we have the user initiating the process by submitting a prompt or question. Notice how the request does not go straight to the AI model. Instead, the arrow points to the retrieval system, the second vertical line. The retrieval system then searches your secure enterprise data to find the exact documents relevant to the user's question. Once it finds those documents, the data returns to the retrieval system. Now, look at the critical next step. The system takes the original user prompt and augments it with the retrieved enterprise documents. This combined, context-rich package is finally sent to the generative AI model on the far right. The model processes the verified data, applies its reasoning capabilities, and sends back a highly accurate, grounded response directly to the user. By visualizing this workflow, it becomes crystal clear why RAG is so powerful. We are essentially forcing the AI to take an open book test using only the approved textbooks from your company, virtually eliminating the risk of fabricated answers and ensuring true enterprise-grade reliability. To fully unlock the value of grounded AI, your workforce must know how to effectively communicate with it. This brings us to the concept of prompt engineering. A prompt is simply the instruction given to the AI, but it is now the primary interface between human intent and machine execution. A poorly constructed, vague prompt yields irrelevant results, wasting time and eroding trust. A strong, enterprise-grade prompt, however, includes 4 distinct elements: a clear instruction, necessary context, input data, and a desired output format. For example, instead of vaguely asking, "Summarize this report," a business user should say, "You are a senior financial analyst. Summarize the compliance risks in this Q3 report into 3 bullet points for an executive audience." It is all about being specific and setting constraints. While business users focus on clarity for daily tasks, developers approach prompt engineering differently. They build structured templates and use advanced techniques like few-shot learning, where they provide the model with examples of good responses directly within the system code to ensure consistency at scale. As a leader, upskilling your non-technical teams in prompt literacy is one of the highest ROI investments you can make. It transforms generative AI from a novel toy into a precision operational instrument. Take a look at this block diagram, which deconstructs the anatomy of a highly effective prompt. The central processing node is the language model, but look at the 4 critical pillars feeding into it from the left. Every user must learn to apply these. The first block is instruction. This is the specific action you want the AI to perform, like summarize or translate. Next is context. This gives the AI its persona and background, such as act as a senior marketing director. The third block is data. This is where you provide the raw material, either by attaching a file or referencing a database. Finally, the fourth block is format. This dictates exactly how the output should look. Do you want a JSON object, a table, or a bulleted list? Below these pillars, You see arrows funneling into the language model, which synthesizes them to produce the high-quality business output on the right. This diagram is an excellent mental model to share with your teams. By ensuring every single prompt contains these 4 foundational elements, your organization will drastically reduce errors, eliminate frustrating rework, and extract the maximum possible efficiency from your generative AI investments. Innovation without governance introduces unacceptable business risk. As we scale generative AI across the enterprise, we must proactively address challenges like data leakage, shadow AI, and algorithmic bias. Microsoft approaches this through 6 guiding responsible AI principles: fairness, reliability and safety, privacy and security, inclusiveness, transparency, and accountability. To put these principles into action, leaders must adopt what we call a shift-left approach to compliance, meaning we embed security and ethics early in the design phase, not as an afterthought. We recommend a 3-phased governance model: govern, secure, and manage. First, govern establishes the rules of engagement. Who has access to what data? A core tenet here is that AI respects existing identity permissions. If a user shouldn't see a confidential HR file, the AI shouldn't be able to retrieve it for them either. Second, secure applies robust technical controls, like data encryption and deploying systems like Azure AI Content Safety to prevent prompt injection attacks. Finally, manage involves the continuous monitoring of the AI's performance over time to detect data drift or safety violations. By building a unified, living governance model, you don't slow down innovation, you create the secure, trusted foundation required to deploy AI confidently at scale. This diagram illustrates the lifecycle of responsible AI implementation, moving through 3 continuous, interconnected phases: govern, secure, and manage. At the top left, we start with govern. This node represents the foundational policies defining your AI manifesto, establishing data classifications, and setting strict access controls. From there, the workflow moves to the right: secure. Here, the theoretical policies become technical realities. This includes implementing data encryption, enforcing role-based access, and deploying threat protection tools to filter malicious prompts. Finally, the flow circles down to the bottom node: manage. Deployment is not the finish line. In the manage phase, we continuously monitor the AI systems for performance drift, gather user feedback, and ensure ongoing compliance with evolving regulations. You will notice that the dashed arrow from manage loops right back up to govern. Governance is not a one-time checklist, it is a dynamic, iterative cycle. As new AI models are released and business needs inevitably evolve, the insights gathered in the manage phase feed directly back into refining the policies in the govern phase, ensuring your AI ecosystem remains secure, compliant, and highly resilient over time. Let's bring all these concepts together into a real-world, highly valuable use case. Consider a financial services firm dealing with a constant influx of complex regulatory updates. Historically, compliance officers spent days manually reading these dense documents, extracting policy changes, and drafting internal compliance FAQs. It was a slow, expensive, and highly error-prone process. By applying our framework, the firm identifies this document-heavy process as a prime candidate for generative AI. They decide to build a custom solution using Azure AI Document Intelligence and Azure OpenAI. First, Document Intelligence ingests the massive PDFs and accurately extracts the structured text. Next, using the RAG architecture we discussed earlier, the system securely grounds the language model in the firm's proprietary, historical compliance database. The model is then prompted to analyze the new regulations against the old policies, generating a highly accurate summarized list of changes and drafting an FAQ document for employees. What used to take days now takes minutes. The process is governed by strict access controls, ensuring data privacy and regulatory compliance. This is the true business value of generative AI, transforming a massive operational bottleneck into a secure, automated, and highly accurate workflow. Take a look at this final diagram, which maps out the exact architecture of our financial services use case. It perfectly illustrates how multiple AI components orchestrate a seamless, high-value workflow. On the far left, we start with regulatory docs, the raw, unstructured input. This data flows into Azure Document Intelligence, which acts as the eyes of the operation, extracting text and tables from complex PDFs. This newly structured data then moves into the RAG system, our retrieval augmented generation engine in the center. Notice how the RAG system also pulls data from the internal policy DB cylinder below it. It combines the new regulations with the firm's specific historical context. This combined, grounded data is then securely passed to the Azure OpenAI LLM. Because we applied strict governance and robust prompt engineering, the LLM processes the data safely and accurately. Finally, the outputs are generated on the far right, automated summaries and employee FAQs. This visual proves that generative AI is not just a standalone chatbot. It is a powerful, integrated engine that, when properly architected and governed, drives massive operational efficiency and tangible business value.